This is my best-selling print. I've sold about 30 of them in the last year, mostly in smaller sizes than this, but it wasn't too long ago that I barely sold any prints at all, typically just a handful per year to friends and family. I just didn't really think that print sales were a viable thing, at least not without an enormous online audience, or like getting in past the gatekeepers of the fine art world, or maybe opening your own gallery in a tourist town. But over the last couple years, I've realized that I was wrong. It takes a lot of work, but it's definitely possible to sell prints. Okay, that took longer than I thought, but all set up for the day. Hopefully it is fine overnight. We will see. I'll see you in the morning. In June, I drove down to Los Angeles to pick up our new camper trailer, and this is it. Since I was going to be down in Oregon for 4 nights for the art fair, I decided to bring this down and camp somewhat nearby. Towing it cuts my gas mileage basically in half, but it's still quite a bit cheaper than getting a hotel, and honestly, it's just really comfortable. I did a little video tour of the trailer on Patreon, but you'll also see this a lot going forward in videos since I plan to use it on a lot of photography trips around the Pacific Northwest. Let's sit here. I was walking around just briefly as I was leaving, and it seems sort of intimidating. Like, this feels like the big leagues of outdoor juried art festivals. People know what they're doing. There's clearly a lot of people who have done this before and have really fancy setups and huge paintings and just big price tags on a lot of stuff. So hopefully that's a good sign, and that means that the kind of people who are going to buy art are going to come to these places. So wish me luck. Hope it goes well. So these juried fine art fairs are a lot of work, and they're pretty expensive to do. So this wasn't my first foray into selling prints. I had a print shop on my website for years, but like I said, I just really rarely sold prints, maybe a handful per year, mostly to people who already knew me. Occasionally I would sell something to someone who found me on Instagram or through YouTube or something, but truly I wasn't selling enough prints to even cover the cost of my Squarespace website. I just didn't think that it was something that would work for someone like me. But then early last year, my girlfriend suggested that I try to sell prints at this local place in Seattle called Venue. It's not like a high-end fine art gallery. It's more like a hybrid boutique gallery gift shop. They sell artsy stuff. So I figured it was worth a shot, a good way to test the waters and see if selling prints locally and in person might work better for someone like me. The owner said that she normally doesn't work with photographers, but she liked my work and was willing to give it a shot. So I made a whole bunch of prints and started selling them there. And honestly, it's been going even better than I expected. I've sold at least 1 print every month and usually a handful. It's definitely not enough to retire on or anything, but it's a nice chunk of change that comes in, and more importantly, it's proof of concept that I can sell prints, and that selling prints locally and in person might be a good way for someone like me to approach it, whereas I didn't find a lot of success online. Welcome to day 1 of the show. I'm a little nervous, but mostly excited. We'll see what the turnout is. It's a Friday, so I think it might be a little bit slow, but we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. I figured I would give you guys a tour of the booth. Northlands is my best-selling print by far, so I've got that one big and on the back. I also have the library, the doggy stick library here. That one always draws people in, and if they're walking by from this angle, well, then they see all 6 of those there. So hopefully, regardless of which direction they come in from, they see something that draws them in and makes them want to come look. So I've got 4 different print bins. I've got my 11 by 14s that I'm actually not going to be selling that size anymore, but I still have inventory. And I've got my 13 by 19s. This is all the print size. They're matted to bigger sizes, 8 by 12 and 8 by 10. And then I've got the big metal prints on the walls. Underneath each of these tables is a bunch of storage space for bags and whatever else. And then I'm experimenting for the first time with greeting cards. I made all of these, and I'm going to be selling them for $5 each, or give people a discount if they buy at least 3. Hopefully those sell well. You know, you can't make a ton of money from low price items like this, but it'll be nice to have something at different price points for anybody if they don't want to buy a big piece for their wall. The tent is a Flourish trim line. It's a pretty high-end tent, and it's very heavy and bulky, and it takes a long time to set up, but it's pretty sturdy, which is nice because I have to leave this set up over the full 3-day weekend. So the morning was actually pretty good. It was a little bit busier than I thought. And then mid-afternoon, it just tanked and it was empty for a long time and I don't really know why. Lots of other neighbors that I was talking to were saying that it felt pretty slow to them too. And one of them had a friend who had done this show a bunch of times and she was saying it was like about half of her normal sale numbers. So definitely a slower day than I'd hoped for, but not too bad. I had a lot of greeting card sales, which was nice to see. I mean, don't make a lot of money from those, but nice to get the momentum going and get some sales and some good conversations with people. And it adds up when you sell 20 of them like I did today. Let's see, also 3 print sales, which is not too bad. And 2 of those were on the smaller side, but one was a bigger print, so that helps. I had one lady who wanted the 20 by 30 metal print that I call the Chase of the fox running on San Juan Island. That brought in a lot of people today. A lot of people were interested in that one, along with the other typical bestsellers like Northlands and the Library and the Urinal and some other ones that always tend to do pretty well. But she wanted to buy that 20 by 30, but she was confused. She saw my prices for the prints that were right below it, 175. And she like literally had her credit card out and she's like, wait, how much is it? When I said it was 600, she's like, ooh, I'm gonna have to go think about that and talk to my husband. And she never came back. I wish I could sell it for 175 to her, but it cost me more than that to get that printed. That one was like $200 to get printed. So I really do have to sell it for quite a lot to make a profit there. So that one didn't go through, but one couple came and were pretty interested and they have their eyes on Northlands, my big bestseller, the one in the back of the tent that I got printed, 30 by 45. And they're going to go home and measure, and they're looking at the 30 by 45 or maybe the 40 by 60. And if either of those sizes sell, then today's going to turn out to be a really good day. We'll see. That would be huge. But either way, it was a really fun day. I really actually enjoyed it quite a lot. I think of myself as an introvert, but these days they energize me for a while. I'm feeling pretty pumped up right now, even though I will also crash pretty hard here pretty soon, and I will absolutely crash pretty hard on Monday after the show's over. Fingers crossed Saturday is just a busier, better day, and maybe that print sale will come through. Day 2, sold a print right away of the Library, which is why I brought 3 of those in each size.
That would be great in a bathroom, wouldn't it?
I literally have friends who have that above their toilet in this size. It's my best bathroom art. No, he was like from me to the end of the tent.
Oh, you're close.
Real close. Yeah, no, I just shot like out the car window. Okay, I'm on a bathroom break, but there's definitely more people here today. Sold 3 small prints and some postcards or greeting cards. So hopefully that's a sign that we're going to keep selling more prints today, but so far not quite as many sales as I had hoped for, but not bad. 7 prints, not bad. Today was a better day though, sales-wise, and a lot of really good conversations too. That's definitely one of my favorite parts about these shows, is the in-person real conversations and just getting to see people's reactions to the work in person. That's so much more meaningful and so much more fun than a nice comment on Instagram or a photo going kind of viral or whatever. But yeah, I think I sold 8 prints today, which is pretty good. I mean, they were all, except for one of them, were pretty small prints. One of them was a little bit bigger. Still no big metal prints, so we'll see if anyone picks up one of those tomorrow. But it adds up. I think we're up to like $1,200 gross or something like that, which is not bad. And because I haven't sold any of the metal prints, my profit margins on the paper ones are great because I do all the printing myself. Takes time, but not as much money. And the booth fee is something like $550, and if you factor in like my gas coming down here and the campsite fees and stuff, like we're definitely, I don't know if we're at minimum wage yet, but we're making money. It's profitable. And we're selling prints and having fun. So calling it a success and hoping that tomorrow is even better. But it is supposed to rain overnight. So we'll see how everything does. And hopefully it's mostly intact and mostly dry when I get there in the morning. So earlier this year, I got intrigued by the idea of doing these outdoor fine art festivals. I had heard a little bit about them over the years, and I knew that it was a way to possibly make some money. I didn't know how much. I didn't know if you could make a full-time income from it, or if it was just something that people did as sort of like a hobby business once they were retired. But I did some digging, and it turns out that it's a lot of work, but you can, in theory, make pretty good money from it. Some people make their full-time, I mean, a lot of people make their full-time income from it, and some people make pretty good money. I heard about painters and photographers making more than $10,000 from a weekend art show, which was definitely intriguing. Turns out that I was too late to apply to most of the festivals here in the Pacific Northwest. Our festival season is in the summer, and you've got to apply back in January for most of the shows, and this was March or April. So I was a little bit too late to apply for most of them for this year, but I decided to try a little local vendor market here in Seattle to test the waters. So this wasn't a full fine art fair. It was more like halfway between a farmer's market and a flea market. Like there were some people selling art and craft sort of things, but there's also a lot of people selling like vintage clothes and corn dogs and whatever else. So definitely a different vibe than like a fine art fair, but still I thought it would be a good way to test the waters and see, do I enjoy spending all day outside in these shows, talking to people, trying to sell my art, being sort of a salesperson? In some ways that didn't sound like me. I view myself as much more of an introvert, but I was intrigued enough to give it a shot. And it's also a much lower cost way to test the waters. So these big fine art fairs, the booth fees for a long weekend show is usually $300, $400, $500, $600, and then you've got to get the whole setup. And if you're going to do the higher end shows, you kind of need a higher end setup to be competitive for even getting into the show, and so that your stuff looks nice when you're selling there. So doing this local Sunday market here in Seattle was a nice way to sort of dip my toe in without fully committing, to make sure that I could sell prints at a place like that and make sure that I really enjoyed it. So I did about 12 of them over the course of the summer, and the first one was sort of deceivingly good. I sold, I think, 8 prints then, including some big ones, and I made, I think after the booth fee and the cost of goods sold, my profit was like $800 for a day of work, which is not too bad for my first ever show. And I was like, oh man, this is great. I'm going to do a bunch of these. And the next one, it poured rain. I sold 1 print and I ruined a frame piece because it got soaking wet. So I lost money on that one. That ended up being my worst ever show. So I started off with a really good show and then a really bad show. And then after that, they sort of averaged out to being a few $100 profit per Sunday, which still wasn't bad. And it was a good way, like I said, to test the waters and see if I enjoyed it. And I really did. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot more fun than I expected. And I was tired at the end of each day, but it was also more energizing than I thought it would be. Fortunately, there were a couple shows that had a deadline that hadn't passed yet. So I went ahead and applied to a couple. I didn't get into one, and I got into the Salem Art Fair that I was at on this trip. Okay, looks like it stopped raining, and I think the rain's done for the day, which is great timing because we've got less than an hour until the fair starts for the day. So, not too bad. That's the first time that I've left my booth set up overnight in the rain. So I'm a little bit anxious, but hopefully everything is dry when I get there in a few minutes. But yeah, yesterday was a pretty good day, and so we've more than covered all expenses. Pretty hefty booth fee, the application fee, gas on the way down and back, campsite fees, and the cost of the prints that I sold. So today is just all profit minus cost of goods sold. So hopefully we've got a good day today too. I think the weather is definitely on our side. It's gonna be high of 70. Hopefully no more rain. And hopefully people come out. And maybe some of the people that came Friday and Saturday went home to measure stuff to see which size they want. And they're gonna come by and buy the biggest print I sell today. Probably not, but we'll see. Seems reasonably dry in here. Nice. Hell yeah. Humid, but the grass is dry. That means that it didn't rain hard enough to run in here. So my first multi-day fine art show, how was it? It was a lot of fun, and I sold quite a few prints. I think I sold like 17 prints and maybe 30-ish greeting cards, which is not a ton of money. I think I sold something like $1,700 in gross sales, which sounds pretty good, but my expenses were pretty high because I had to go all the way down to Oregon and get a bunch of nights of campsite and gas, and the booth fee itself was like $550 and the application fee is like $50. So when all is said and done, I think I made like $600 profit for 3 really hard days of work plus some travel. Not to mention the photography itself and printing and all of that. So I'm definitely making less than minimum wage here, but it sounds like a lot of the photographers that I talked to and the painters that I talked to had a really slow show. People who've been doing this for a long time were saying like this was sort of a weirdly slow show, and I can expect to hopefully do better in the future. One photographer that I've talked to who's been doing these shows as his full-time source of income for like 8 years now, he said this was his worst show ever. So if that's true, and I was still able to make money from this, then I think that's a really good sign. I also just had a lot of fun. It was even more fun than I expected. I feel like I really got to know my booth neighbors really well. We were just good friends by the end of this show. The conversations with all of the customers that came through were great. And it feels good to be able to like sell 17 prints. It'd be nice if they were bigger ones and if I had sold some of the metal prints, but that's just to show that in the future, there's room for growth here. I'm still very much a beginner at all of this stuff, but it's pretty cool to see that even as a beginner at selling my work at this kind of show, I'm still able to make some money from it. So hopefully in the shows that I do next year, I will make quite a bit more because it is a lot of work. This is definitely the hardest that I've worked for this amount of money in a long time, but I think it's worth giving it like a full dedicated year of trying to make this work. I kind of view this as my warm-up year. I was buying all of the stuff. I was figuring out how it works, which prints to offer, what sizes to sell, how to price things. So I've learned a ton, but now I'm excited to really give it a shot and see if I can make it work. Personally, I'm going to focus more on local shows next year, not like the local one-day shows that I did, but there's just fine art fairs throughout Washington and in or close to Seattle. So those will be nice because my expenses will be lower. It won't be as much time away from home. I can commute from home, so I'm not having to get a hotel or a campsite or anything. And I think my work will sell better in Washington than in Oregon just because I have more photos from Washington. So I'm really excited for next year. I think regardless, it's going to be a lot of work, but as long as it continues to be a lot of fun and I make some money, hopefully even more money than I did this time, I think it'll be worth it. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions about fine art fairs or setup or how to get started, I've got a few resources down in the description box below, or leave me a comment and I'll try to answer it. I have got a few more in-depth videos about this kind of thing over on Patreon, so if you want to check out more, you can support me over there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.